are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, June 21st. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about on the show today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about the preseason schedule, just kind of go through it, the matchups. Again, I mean, it's preseason, and of course, as I'm saying that, my camera decides to turn off on me like that. So yeah, we'll go through the preseason schedule. We'll talk about that. Then in the second part of the show, I'll continue my schedule breakdown. So we're in the AFC North currently. The last 2 days we talked about the Ravens schedule, the Bengals schedule. Today we will be doing the Cleveland Browns schedule. So I'll go over that, give you my early win-loss predictions for them. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about Ramondre Stevenson, the running back for the New England Patriots, getting a new contract, so I'll talk about that a little bit. Just kind of go through his career stats, what that means for the Patriots going forward. Then in the fourth part of the show, we'll talk about some comments made by Steelers general manager Omar Khan, just on the quarterback situation. So we'll get into that as well. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about Trevor Lawrence's recent comments after his contract extension that he got with the Jaguars. So that's the rundown for the show. So let's get into the first topic, which is discussing the preseason schedule. So I know this has been out for a while, but I didn't really cover it. And of course, it's preseason. We went through the regular season. I went through all the primetime games, and I'm currently going through each team's individual schedules right now. But we didn't really go through the preseason schedule. So I just wanted to touch upon it. And like I said, it's preseason. These games don't mean anything. I mean, they mean things for players that are trying to make the team, of course, and for the first, for the first team to maybe get some snaps in the second game, the dress rehearsal. But yeah, for all of us, we're not that excited for preseason. I mean, I guess just because it'll be football and it'll be back soon, because it's a little less than 2 months away. So the first game is on August 1st at 8 p.m. on ESPN and ABC, which is actually interesting, because this is the Hall of Fame game, of course, because usually this game is on NBC, but that's not the case. It's on ESPN and ABC, and it's the Houston Texans and the Chicago Bears, who will be facing each other in Week 2 of the NFL season. And with these two teams, I think the Texans have higher expectations than the Bears, but I think the Bears do have some expectations going into this year because of all the moves that they made this offseason. Now you have Caleb Williams as your starting quarterback. And then with the Texans, all the moves that they made, getting Stephon Diggs on offense. So yeah, there's some expectations for these teams going into the season, and they'll be playing each other. And I mean, I loved what the Texans did this offseason. I love what the Bears did this offseason. So, I mean, I think, when these two teams match up, I mean, we could see a lot of points being scored. So I'm looking forward to that week 2 matchup. But this is what officially gets us started in the NFL season. The Hall of Fame game, it'll be these two teams. So that's on August 1st. Then on Thursday, August 8th, you have the Panthers and the Patriots. Now, like I said, when it comes to preseason, when it comes to the first team, you're not going to see, the first team get, for the dress rehearsal, you're probably going to see maybe, some of the stars play. But, in the first preseason game, you're not really going to see a lot of starters, get reps. So, with the Panthers and the Patriots, I mean, I'm guessing Andy Dalton's going to get some snaps. Maybe we'll see Jacoby Brissett play for the Patriots. Well, actually, I mean, who knows? Maybe we do see Bryce Young and Drake May. Maybe the Patriots want to get Drake May some reps here. Well, Drake May might not even be starting week 1, so maybe he gets some game action here. So that's on August 8th. So we're still on week 1 here. So then the following day, you got the Falcons and the Dolphins, the Texans at the Steelers, the Eagles at the Ravens, which a couple of regular season matchups in there. Actually, no, the Steelers I don't think are playing the Texans, but they are playing. The Eagles and the Ravens are playing, so that's later in the season, so that'll be an exciting matchup. But yeah, so they'll be playing on Friday, August 9th, and let's see if the Ravens can start another winning streak in the preseason, because that got snapped last year. Then the following day, the Bears will be taking on the Bills. This is Saturday, August 10th. You got the Seahawks and the Chargers, the Packers and the Browns, the Buccaneers and the Bengals, and then the Chiefs and the Jaguars. And then the following day, on Sunday, August 11th, the Broncos and the Colts, and then the Cowboys and the Rams. And then you got the Raiders and the Vikings, the Lions and the Giants, the Commanders and the Jets, and then the 49ers and the Titans. So that's week 1. Then week 2, we got the Eagles and the Patriots, so they get us started. Then the Falcons and the Ravens, Giants and the Texans, Bengals and the Bears, Cardinals and the Colts, Lions at the Chiefs, Rams at the Chargers, Jets at the Panthers, Vikings at the Browns, Commanders at the Dolphins, Bills at the Steelers, and then the Buccaneers at the Jaguars. And then you have Panthers at Broncos, Saints at 49ers, which will be on Fox. That's Sunday, August 18th. And then the Cowboys and the Raiders, and the Seahawks and the Titans. And then for the final week of the preseason, you got the Bears and the Chiefs, Colts at the Bengals, which will be on Prime. So this is Thursday, August 22nd. August 23rd, you got the Jaguars at the Falcons, Dolphins at the Buccaneers. And Saturday, August 24th, Rams at Texans, Chargers at Cowboys, Ravens at Packers, Vikings at Eagles, Browns at Seahawks. And then you got the Cardinals at the Broncos, and then which is on CBS. And then you got the Patriots at the Commanders, which is on NBC. So those two teams will be getting the Sunday night game just in the preseason. And then the final few games here, Panthers at the Bills, Steelers at the Lions, 49ers at the Raiders, Titans at the Saints, and then the Jets at the Giants, or Giants at Jets. But they play in the same stadium, so it really doesn't matter. But yeah, the Giants will be the away team. But most of these games actually will be airing on NFL Network. So, and they'll probably have replays of the games if there's certain guys that you want to pay attention to. But yeah, it's just something I wanted to go over because again, I know I went over the primetime games for the regular season. I'm going through the schedule breakdowns, but I didn't go through the preseason. So, like I said, the Bears and the Texans will get us started, and they'll be matching up against each other in week 2. So looking forward to that. But yeah, like I said, we are a little under 2 months before, or a little over a month before the preseason starts, because we're almost in July. So, you got training camp coming up, and then preseason after that, and then we got the regular season. So, it's a lot to look forward to in the coming months. But yeah, again, we're not really going to see. I mean, this week 2 is going to be the dress rehearsal, and then week 3, it's certain players are going to be trying to make a last impression to make the roster for certain teams. So, but I mean, at least it'll be football, and we'll see the rookies play. So we'll see how some of these guys are. I don't really expect, in the Hall of Fame game, you're not going to see C.J. Stroud. Probably not going to see Caleb Williams either. You're going to see Tyson Bagent. And is Davis Mills still the backup quarterback for Houston? I think he is. So, yeah, that's probably. Or actually, well, I know Case Keenum was on the team last year because they won that game in Tennessee. So that's what you're going to see. But because you would think with the Hall of Fame game that, you'd have the starters play. But no, that's not the case. It's just another preseason game. So, but yeah, that's the preseason schedule. And, yeah, like I said, we're getting closer. We're getting closer. But at the same time, I don't want to rush the summer away. I want to enjoy the summer. Because once football comes back, that's when the weather changes, and I'm trying to enjoy, the summer. So, but let me know what you guys think about the preseason. And listen, we could be getting only 2 preseason games in the future, because if the NFL goes to an 18-game schedule, they're going to knock out a preseason game. And I know there was an article that I was reading. Some of the players are for it. As long as, you're adding a game, but you're taking away a game. And it seems like some players are for it, but, I know there's some that are probably, maybe not so thrilled about it. But it's more football. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about the preseason. Again, let me know what you guys think about who are you excited to see make their debut in the preseason. Let me know in the comments. So when we come back from our first break, we will talk about the Cleveland Browns schedule. I'll continue my schedule breakdowns for each team, and we'll talk about them when we come back from our first break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about the Cleveland Browns schedule. I'll give you my early win-loss predictions for them. So let's get into that. So the Browns, they went 11-6 last year. They made the playoffs quarterback carousel. They had to start 5 different starting quarterbacks: Deshaun Watson, Dorian Thompson Robinson, P.J. Walker, Jeff Driscoll, the final game of the regular season, and, of course, Joe Flacco, who did start the playoff game against the Texans for them. So they're hoping that they get a healthy year out of Deshaun Watson. You got Nick Chubb coming back. So this is the Browns' schedule right here. So they get it started against the Dallas Cowboys at home. This will be Tom Brady's first game that he will broadcast in the regular season. And, yeah, I feel like this game could go either way for the Browns. I forget if I picked them to win this game or not when I was doing the Cowboys schedule. But, yeah, I feel like this is a game they could win, being at home. So I think they could start off the year 1-0. Then they take on the Jaguars. I feel like this is another toss-up game. You know, the Jags are looking to bounce back from a rough end to their season last year. Trevor Lawrence, who we'll talk about later in the show, you know, he was dealing with some injuries towards the end of the year. So, yeah, they're hoping to bounce back. Again, I feel like this is another toss-up game here. I feel like this game could go either way. I feel like the Browns have a better defense than the Jaguars do. But, you know, I could still see this game being a game that they could drop. You know, I mean, I like the defensive line for Jacksonville. You know, they added Eric Armstead. You gave Josh Allen a lot of money. You still got Walker as well. So, yeah, I like their defensive line. We'll see how their defense is this year. So this is another toss-up game for me. I could see the Browns dropping this one. This one's another toss-up for me. Then week 3, I mean, I think they should beat the Giants. They're at home. I mean, I don't think the Giants are going to be very good this year. I think they should win that. I can see the Browns, dropping this game against the Raiders here. The Raiders do play well at home, and I feel like their defense, you know, it played a lot better last year when Antonio Pierce took over. I feel like this is a game that the Raiders could win. So the Browns at this point, I think, could be either 3-1 or 2-2. They actually have 3 straight road games. So then they take on the Commanders. For me, I think that should be a win. So I'll give them the win there. I mean, could it be a competitive game? Sure. But I think the Browns should win that. Eagles is going to be tough. The Eagles game is going to be tough. So I'm going to say I think the Eagles will take that one. And then they take on the Bengals the following week. And like I said when I was doing the Bengals schedule, you know, until they prove to me that they could beat the Browns in Cleveland, I'm going to take the Browns. So, but again, that game could go either way. The Bengals could finally play well there. Because they actually did play well in Cleveland Burrow's rookie season. But I don't know, these last couple times they just have not played well in Cleveland. I don't know what the issue is, but then they take on the Ravens. I feel like they're going to split with the Ravens. I think they're going to split with all their divisional opponents. I feel like they'll find a way to get a win against the Ravens. I think they'll get a win against the Bengals. I think they'll most likely split with the Steelers. I feel like I've been saying that a lot, that teams are just going to split with their divisional opponents. But this division is so tough. This is the toughest division in football. So, you know, that's why I could see them, you know, getting a split with each of the teams. The Chargers game, I feel like that game could go either way. I'm curious to see how the Chargers offense is, because you know they're going to run the football. How is Justin Herbert going to be with these young weapons? I think they could be a sneaky good team. I've said that. So, yeah, I mean, I think I would take the Browns here. Then they go to the Superdome to take on the Saints. You know, I mean, the Saints are at home. I mean, that's a tough game there. I could see that being a loss. But, I mean, I don't know how the Saints are going to be this year. You know, are they going to be the team that finished the season strong, or are they going to be the team that was inconsistent all year? So, I feel like that could be a close game, though. But I'll give the Saints the win there. Actually, I don't even remember. What did I give them when I did my schedule breakdown for them? That one I think could be another toss-up. I said they'd split with the Steelers. The Broncos, I feel like that should be a win. I don't think the Broncos are going to be very good this year. I said they'd split with the Steelers. The Chiefs coming in. I mean, that's a game that the Browns defense could rise to the occasion. I mean, we saw how they played against the 49ers when the 49ers came in hot last year. But I think the Chiefs should still win that game, so I would take the Browns. And then, like I said, I think they'll split with the Bengals, they'll split with the Steelers, they'll split with the Ravens. The Dolphins coming in, that high-powered offense. Yeah, that game, that also can go either way. But I think with the defense, and I think the Browns will get that one. So I'll give them the win there as well. So I let's see. I had them losing to the Raiders, the Eagles splitting with their divisional opponents. That's 5 losses there. I feel like 10-7. I think they'll go 10-7. I think that's fair. So that actually with Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb, that's a game worse than what they finished last year. So yeah, 10-11 wins. I think they're around the same because again, you still got a very good defense, and if Deshaun Watson's healthy, if Nick Chubb is healthy, I mean the Browns are still winning games despite Deshaun Watson not playing well. They added weapons. You added Jerry Jeudy, to that receiving core. Even though he's been kind of a disappointment, but still, that's another weapon for Deshaun Watson. So I don't know. I think they're still a good enough team where even if the quarterback is struggling, I still think they're going to get their fair share of wins here. So I think 10-7, 11-6, around the same record as last year. So yeah, I mean this division is going to be, and the AFC North has the toughest schedules, as a whole. So I mean, yeah, you look at the Browns' schedule from week 14 to week 18. Yeah, that's tough. At the Steelers, home for the Dolphins and the Chiefs, 2 high-powered offenses, and then you got the Bengals and the Ravens, which are both road games. So, yeah, I mean the Browns could be right there for a playoff spot, and these last 5 games could really come into play. This could really define their season, are those 5 games. So, yeah, I mean, it's a tough schedule towards the end of the year there. But I think they're a good enough team where they're gonna get some of their games. They'll win some of those games towards the end. I think so. We'll see what happens. But it's a big year for them. They're hoping that they can get their quarterback healthy. And I know I talked about what Andrew Berry said earlier in the week, their general manager, that they're encouraged with Deshaun Watson and where he's at in his rehab. Nick Chubb, is kind of further away, but he's working his way back. So the Browns, they're gonna be a good team again. But I think they're hoping that they don't go through this quarterback carousel that they had to go through last year because that was rough. And you got to give them a lot of credit that despite that, they still made the playoffs. Now, the playoff game didn't go well. We understand that. But the fact that they were able to get there with Joe Flacco, who didn't play the whole year, and then he steps in and plays really well, wins comeback player of the year, that was impressive. And that's why, Kevin Stefanski won coach of the year. But yeah, we'll see. I feel like the Browns are going to be one of those teams where they do lose some games that they should win, and they're going to win games that they maybe should have lost. Like last year, because I think they lost to the Colts and Minshew early on in the year, and that was like a shootout. That was I think it was a 39-38 ball game. You had that. I feel like they could have got swept by the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens had that game. They were up by a couple scores, and the Browns came back and won that. That's a game that they probably should have lost, but they ended up winning. So I feel like you're kind of going to get that. Like with the Raiders, I feel like the Browns are the better team, But I think the Raiders, I could see that being a game that the Raiders win. Because the Raiders do play well at home. I mean, but I don't think the Raiders are a bad team, but I think the Browns are, the better of the two. And the Saints, I mean, that's a game. I feel like the Browns are the better team, but I think, again, the Saints being at home, maybe they win that. I don't know. We'll see. We will see what happens. I don't think they're going to drop a game to the Giants. But you know what? Maybe the Giants, they go on a 2022 run and they surprise us. I don't see it happening. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, though. How many games do you think the Browns are going to win? I said around 10, 11 wins. I kind of lean more towards 10, which, again, is a game worse than what they finished with last year. They went 11-6 last year with all the problems they had at quarterback. But we will see. So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots getting a new contract. I'll get into the details for it and, the impact that it'll have on the Patriots. So that is what we will discuss when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about running back of the New England Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson, and his new contract. So he's the latest running back that has gotten paid. I mean, we had that, earlier in the offseason, you had a lot of running backs change teams, of course, and get paid. But Ramondre Stevenson will be sticking around in New England for an extended period of time with this new extension. He was taken he was a rookie in 2021, so he was taken out of Oklahoma. Back in 2021. And he only had 606 rushing yards, averaged 4.6 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns. But he was kind of the number 2 guy to Damian Harris. But when he was on the field, he did show you, hey, this is a pretty good player. And then the following year, Damian Harris dealt with injury, so Ramondre Stevenson, he became the number 1 back. And he had 210 carries, 1,040 rushing yards, averaged 5 yards per carry, and 5 rushing touchdowns. So that was a good year. That was a pretty good year for him, even though the Patriots, they finished, I think, 8-9 on the season. And then last year, dealt with injuries. He only had 619 yards and 4 touchdowns. So the Patriots, they signed him. So the specifics of the contracts, they agreed to he agreed to a 4-year, $36 million extension. This contract includes $17 million guaranteed, an $8 million Signing bonus is included. The deal includes $12 million in incentives starting in 2025. So he can earn $600,000 for each of 1,400, 1,500, and 1,600 scrimmage yards, and an additional $600,000 for making the Pro Bowl or earning first or second team All-Pro honors. And his maximum contract value could reach $48 million if all incentives are met. And the $9 million new money average ranks him 7th among running backs. This extension will keep him under contract through 2028. And he was entering the final year of his rookie deal, so the Patriots wanted to get this done. But yeah, he is going to be the workhorse back. And the Patriots, they did add Antonio Gibson this offseason from the Commanders. They also have some other running backs. They have Kevin Harris, Jermichael Hasty, Deshaun Fenwick, and Terrell Jennings. So that's their running back depth behind Ramondre Stevenson. And if you look at this Patriots offense, I mean, I guess we could agree that he's probably the best offensive weapon on the team. Because you got Kendrick Bourne working his way back from his injury from last year. They signed KJ Osborne this offseason. You got DeMario Douglas. They drafted Jalen Polk. You still have Juju Smith-Schuster. They brought back, they extended Hunter Henry. I don't know. I feel like Ramondre Stevenson's probably the best weapon on the team. But, yeah, he's coming off of a down year. He only played, how many games did he play in last year? He only played in, I want to say, he only played in 12 games last year. So actually in 2021 he played in 12 games too. So he missed some time his rookie season. 2022 stayed healthy, played every single game. But yeah, last year he only played in 12 games. And then the receiving game, he had 238 receiving yards, no touchdowns. But I think he's a solid running back. The Patriots, like I said, he probably is the best offensive weapon. There's not really a lot of elite level talent on this Patriots offense. This is a transition period for them. This is a rebuild for them. And it's going to be different. Because with the Patriots, you're accustomed to seeing them being a team that competes for championships. And we haven't really seen that these last few years for many different reasons. Well, the biggest reason is because number 12 left to go play in Tampa for a few years. But, yeah, now there's no Belichick. This is a new era for the Patriots. And, with running backs, they're kind of a position where, teams are reluctant to pay, big money for them. We saw the Eagles and what, they signed Saquon Barkley to. And Ramondre Stevenson's 26, so now he's in his mid-20s, and you would think you're in your mid-20s, you're still young. No, but not for a running back. Running back, you're starting to get older. The running back position, ages faster. So, but I think he's still got some good years. You got to stay healthy. Like I said, he only played in 12 games last year, and it's going to depend on. If the switch to Drake May, because it seems like Jacoby Brissett's going to be the starter to start the year. Ramondre Stevenson's going to get a heavy workload, but you think when Drake May, takes over, they're going to rely upon Ramondre Stevenson to take some pressure off of Drake May. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, where would you rank Ramondre Stevenson among the top running backs? I guess he's maybe top 15, top 20. He's definitely outside the top. I can't do a top 10 off the bat. You got Barkley, you got Hunter Henry, Derrick Henry, McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, I'd probably take over him. I'm really going to go through all the running backs right now. Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne. I mean, yeah, so you're probably gonna end up with him outside the top 10. Yeah, so he's probably top 15, top 20, I would say. But like I said, he's probably the best offensive weapon on the team. So, and I think maybe he's still got some productive years left. Now, I don't expect him, with this extension to go out there and rush for, to get his incentives for 1,400, 1,500 yards. I don't think you're going to get that. I think you're going to get a guy that, will get around 1,000 yards. Kind of stay around his touchdown total. But maybe it goes up. But yeah, I don't expect him to reach those milestones. But because he hasn't shown it in the 3 years that he's been in the league. Well, partly because he's been hurt, but the 1 year that he did play every single game, he did get over 1,000 yards. But who knows? It's a new offense, a new system, so maybe he does get close to those marks. But whether this is a good move or not, it's, again, you're keeping your best offensive weapon. This will take him till he's 30. So, I think if they start to see, a decline, or if he just continues to get hurt, well, you got other running backs on the team, which I don't really look at right now. I don't know, outside of Antonio Gibson, I'm not really too familiar with some of the other running backs on their depth chart, so I don't really see, any of them as, coming out and being a Jonas Gray, and having that 4-touchdown game, and then you don't see him again. But, if Ramondre Stevenson starts to decline, the Patriots will have to, address that. But yeah, this is just another contract extension, another running back getting paid. Because we had running backs get paid in at the start of free agency. Then you had all the quarterback stuff. Now, took a little break from the quarterback stuff, and also receivers got paid as well. Don't forget that. But now we just have another running back that gets paid. So, I'm okay with it. But I think the Patriots, they're hoping that he goes out there and he has a great year. And I think he's hoping for the same thing. Last year was tough, for, the players in general, because the Patriots had their worst season in a long time. And they're hoping to turn the page, and they're hoping this new era is promising. So, and he's going to be a big part of that. So let me know what you guys think, though. How did you feel about Ramondre Stevenson and his new contract? How do you see him doing this year? I think if he plays the full season, I think he'll get, to 1,000 yards, close to it. With him being the workhorse back, but only time will tell. Only time will tell. And actually, I also forgot some of the other running backs in his division as well. I think Breece Hall is probably better. As well. James Cook had a good year last year. Raheem Mostert even had the amount of touchdowns he had last year. And Devon Achane looks like he's going to be a good player, although he dealt with injuries as well. Yeah, so there are actually some good running backs in the AFC East. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, I probably put Ramondre Stevenson. He's definitely outside the top 10, probably like top 15, top 20. Maybe. I didn't really feel like doing a rankings off the top of my head. And I don't really like doing rankings to begin with because it's kind of hard sometimes. But it also depends on how big the list is. Like, if I was to sit here and rank all 32 starting running backs, it's difficult. But, top 5, yeah, top 10, okay, but once you get past that, it's hard. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about Ramondre Stevenson's contract. Like I said, what kind of season you think he's gonna have. So, we're gonna end the segment there. We're gonna take another break, And then when we come back, we will talk about Steelers general manager Omar Khan and his recent comments on Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So I wanted to get into that. So we'll discuss that when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about Steelers general manager Omar Khan and his comments praising his quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. And the Steelers, of course, we've talked about them a lot. Quarterback room is completely different than what it was last year. Got Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, and also Kyle Allen as well as the number 3 quarterback. Although he's just there to be a backup. He's not going to be a starter. But I just wanted to get into some of the comments that Omar Khan had to say recently. So this is what he had to say. He said, "If you would have told me that we'd be sitting here with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields," and he also said, "and Kyle Allen 5 months ago, I wouldn't have believed you." And he said that via Pro Football Talk. He said, "We really like Justin coming out of college. He had an up-and-down situation in Chicago, and the opportunity was there to get him, and I'm excited. He's really looked awesome. He's a great individual, too. I didn't know him personally until he got here. What a special person he is." And, yeah, I mean, I think if you would have told a lot of people that, that would be the Steelers quarterback room before it ended up happening, a lot of people would not believe it. But, yeah, this is the Steelers quarterback room. And I know, from what I was reading, there's still some concerns with Justin Fields and, his accuracy and his footwork. With Russell Wilson, there's been some positives. I know when I did a segment, either it was earlier this week or early last week, they were talking about how Russell Wilson kind of looks like how he did in Seattle. But obviously, when you're practicing and it's not a game, yeah, I mean, you're gonna make some good throws, and it's like, wow, that was great. But now, when you're playing in a game, it's gonna be completely different. But yeah, I mean, at this point, Russell Wilson looks like he's gonna be the starter, and maybe it's possible that Justin Fields gets some playing time at some point. I know I saw, so I think the Madden trailer dropped, and it showed Justin Fields was returning kicks in the trailer. So, people, I guess, there were people making a big deal out of that. It's like, come on, guys. It's a video game. Now, let's see what happens, in real life. Does he end up returning kicks? I mean, I think it would be foolish of the Steelers to do that because, you're risking injury there. But yeah, let's pump the brakes on that. But yeah, I mean, with the Steelers quarterback position, that's another thing that I'm really intrigued about this upcoming season. And we'll actually be going over the Steelers schedule on Monday, which I think is something that because the Steelers we've talked about in our production meeting, and we've talked about how tough the Steelers schedule is, and how many games are they going to win. I'm going to go over the schedule on Monday, and I'm going to try to find a way to give them at least 9 wins, because I think that's what they will still end up getting, because they somehow find a way. Last year, they went 10-7 and made the playoffs with 3 different starting quarterbacks. I think they have a better quarterback room than they did last year. I think they'll find a way to at least get 9 wins, which actually will end up being less than what they had last year. But the other thing too is they also had, some things go right for them because you had some injuries. So they played some teams that, had injuries at the quarterback position. Like they swept the Bengals last year. When there was no Burrow, of course. The Ravens, they sat their starters the final week of the regular season. So, I do think that win in Seattle, I give them credit. That was, I didn't think they were going to win that game. But, give them credit. They did win that on the road, tough environment. But yeah, they did get some breaks at times during the year, which kind of led to them making the playoffs. And then what happened? They ended up losing to the Bills. But, my dog is barking. But, the quarterback situation here in Pittsburgh, I'm curious to see how Russell Wilson's going to be. I've said it all along. I feel like we're still going to see the Russell Wilson from Denver. I don't think we're really going to see the one from Seattle, but they say he looks good. He talked about being motivated. He feels rejuvenated. So, maybe, he goes out there and he plays really well. And he looks like the Russell Wilson from Seattle, because that would change the whole complexion of that team if he ends up being the Russell Wilson from Seattle. But I just don't see it because it's been a while. It's been a couple years. So, but I think being in Pittsburgh probably is a better situation for him than it was in Denver, just because. I don't think. We had to see what Nathaniel Hackett was as a head coach, and then once, we went through the season, he was not a good coach. That was just not for him. And then Russell Wilson was a little bit better with Sean Payton, but people still have their complaints, which I get. So now we'll see how he is with the Steelers. But yeah, and then, if he doesn't play well, Justin Fields is going to get an opportunity. He's definitely going to get an opportunity. So we got to see how short that leash is with Russell Wilson. Because, yeah, if he starts to not play well, Justin Fields is going to get a chance. So, but it just, the Steelers, right now, I rank them as, 4 in the division, because I just, I think the Bengals are better, the Ravens, even though the Steelers actually, last year, I get it, they sat their starters, but the Steelers did sweep the season series with the Ravens last year. They split the year before against the Bengals. They swept them last year, but yeah, there was no Burrow, so it probably would have been at least a split. The Steelers, they're still going to be a competitive team. They're going to find a way. So, I like I said, I am curious to see how, the quarterback position plays out. And what's going to happen after this year? Because I remember seeing that, the Steelers were maybe looking to keep Russell Wilson long term. Maybe Justin Fields, they try to keep him long term. I'm curious to see what happens after that. But at the same time, don't want to rush the season either. I talked about not rushing the summer. I don't want to rush the NFL season when it gets here, because once it starts, it doesn't stop. It's going to go right by, like a passing train. It's going to go so fast, and then we're going to be like, well, that was fast. That was quick. And then, you're looking forward to next season. So, yeah, it's, another interesting thing to keep an eye on. We'll see how it goes. But the Steelers, they seem to be encouraged by both quarterbacks, even though, again, there's been some articles that come out talking about, Justin Fields and, like I said, the inaccuracy and the footwork not looking great. But we'll see. And maybe, just sitting behind Russell Wilson, I think that can help Fields. I don't really expect Russell Wilson to be a mentor. I think they're going to help each other. But, I don't think Russell Wilson, his main priority is going to be to mentoring Justin Fields. Russell Wilson wants to win football games and, put some respect back on his name because, he's kind of been a meme these last couple of years. He wants to get back to being one of those elite quarterbacks because that's what he was at one point. He went from being an elite quarterback to now a meme. That's, so he's trying to, like I said, put some respect back on his name. That's his priority. I guess there'll be some mentorship there, but I don't. That's not really his job. But there really, nothing's come out about there being any issues between the two. So, I think they've both spoken positively about each other. So I think we would have definitely heard something if there were some issues. So, but that's really my thoughts on the quarterback situation. Just some comments made by the general manager. He's speaking very positively about, Fields and Russ, of course. So, let's see what the Steelers do. We thought it was going to be Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph battling it out. That's not the case. They're on new teams. So, but that's really my thoughts on the Steelers there. So, we're going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we'll talk about Trevor Lawrence and his recent comments, after getting that big extension with the Jaguars, of course. We'll kind of talk about that, just, some things he had to say, and that'll pretty much do it here on this Friday. So, the week, of course, always goes fast. And once again, we made it to the end of the week. So, yeah, this is what we'll talk about Trevor Lawrence when we come back. So, with that being said, for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about Trevor Lawrence, just some comments that he made after getting his big extension. So let's get into that. So this is what he had to say. Obviously, financially, it's amazing and really sets us up for the future and for the rest of our lives. That's a huge blessing. Obviously, that's a big deal, but I think even more than that is the stability of being here for the long term. However many years it ends up being, I guess it could be 7, could be however many it ends up being. Still, that's a long time. To be able to say we're gonna be here and have confidence and know that means a lot to us. We love it here. It's become home. The way the organization's going and the direction that we're heading on the football side, what makes it obviously a no-brainer for us. We're headed in the right direction, and I want to be the quarterback here. I want to bring a championship to Jacksonville. That's my goal. I really know that we can accomplish that. And then he also said, I'm not going to add any pressure to myself just based on getting this contract. It doesn't really change what I expect of myself and what the team expects of me, whether this got done or not. Mr. Khan, Trent, Doug, everyone, all the coaches expect me to play well, like I said, to bring a championship here eventually. now that it's done. It doesn't really change that, but like I said, maybe from the outside, it will a bit, but not for me. Then he also said, there's always a balancing act of however many years you do. Sometimes that can put the team in a better position, which is great. That was our goal, which I'm glad I felt we were able to accomplish. Obviously, there was a certain amount as a player you want to make, and you want to be in the market value and all those things, but you also want to keep the team in a good position to where we can pay other guys and have other players around me and do all those things from a salary cap perspective. I don't know how all that works, but I just felt like my agent and Trent and the whole front office did a good job of kind of maneuvering all those things where it felt like we all won in the end, and it puts us in a position to where we can still have a lot of talent here, and we can bring guys in, or we can keep the guys that we have. That was something that was important to me because it wasn't worth it to me to sacrifice being able to have a good team just so I can make some money. I think this is definitely the best team that we've had here in my eyes just at this point in the year. From what I've seen, I feel very confident in that. So yeah, I had a lot to say. Of course, very excited about the new deal and is ready to get to work and win a championship and hopefully bring home a championship to Jacksonville. And he said, towards the end there, that he feels like this is the best team that they've had since he's been there. And hopefully it is for Jacksonville's sake, because last year, I've said it a bunch of times now, but I thought once they won that game in Houston, I thought the division was over. I thought the Jaguars, they wrapped up the division and they were on their way to another playoff appearance. But that ended up not happening. And I think part of that, again, was that Trevor Lawrence got hurt towards the end of the year. Like, they lost that tough overtime game to the Bengals. I feel like if Trevor Lawrence doesn't get hurt in that game, they probably win, and then we're having a different conversation. The Texans, they end up not winning the division, and the Jags, they end up getting in at 10-7 because they ended up finishing 9-8. They were like 8-3, 8-4 at that point, and they ended up losing the division. They had a collapse, and also the Eagles had a collapse. But I think the Eagles' collapse was, actually they were both bad because the Eagles were 10-1, and then they ended up finishing the season 11-6. The Jags were 8-4, 8-3 at that point, and they ended up finishing 9-8. So, but the Jags, they missed the playoffs. The Eagles still made it. It's just then that playoff game against the Bucs, that was rough. But yeah, in terms of where the Jaguars are in the landscape of the AFC, right now I look at them as probably a wild card team. And that's because of if they were to make the playoffs. But that's because I just think the Texans are better. The Texans, they really exceeded expectations last year. They won the division. They won a home playoff game. And even during the regular season, both games, well, not both games, but the Texans, they won by, a few scores in Jacksonville, if you remember. And then, the Jags won in Houston, but that was a very close game. That game could have gone either way. So the Texans, they could have swept the Jags last year. Actually, if we can go back to that game, because I think the final score was what? I think it was like 37-17, something like that. Yeah, like CJ Stroud had like 3 touchdowns in the game. They won 37-17. CJ Stroud had 2 touchdowns. He went 20 of 30, 280 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence went 27 of 40, 279 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And actually, the Jaguars got shut out in the first half. They scored all their points in the second half. They scored 10 in the third quarter and 7 in the fourth quarter. Tank Dell had a breakout game. He had 5 receptions for 145 yards and a touchdown. But yeah, that was very early on in the season, and then the other game was the second game in Houston was close. But yeah, I view the Jaguars, if they're going to make the playoffs, I think it's going to be as a wild card team, and I think the division is tougher. You got Anthony Richardson coming back and playing a full season. I think the Titans, they got a little bit better. But we'll see how Will Levis is. I mean, it really is all going to depend on how Will Levis plays. If he doesn't play well, then it doesn't really matter. But yeah, division's going to be better, and the conference is just loaded. So they're going to have to find a way. And last year, like I said, was a tough year for Trevor Lawrence. He threw a lot of interceptions last year. Dealt with injuries towards the end of the year. 2022 has been his best season so far. And we're hoping that he could be more of his 2022 self and actually be even better. Because, I mean, you're making $55 million a year. You kind of expect, Trevor Lawrence to be, at the top with a lot of these elite level quarterbacks. And the first year, we kind of throw that out the window because that was a mess. The second year was like, okay, they made a run towards the second, in the second half of the season. They won the division. They won a playoff game. They had that epic comeback against the Chargers. They did lose a tough game to the Chiefs. But you thought, okay, the Jags, they're going to be a good team for a long time. And then last year, they kind of took a step back. They still finished with the winning record, but, they collapsed and missed the playoffs. So they're hoping for a better outcome in 2024. They kind of been missing that number one wide receiver, and they're hoping that Brian Thomas Jr. could be that. I mean, Calvin Ridley, I guess, was that last year, but, Ridley also didn't play for 2 years. Actually still finished with over 1,000 yards, but, they had to find a replacement for Ridley. They got Brian Thomas Jr. They signed Gabe Davis. You got Christian Kirk, who hopefully is going to come back, because he dealt with, well, he's going to come back, but he dealt with injuries last year. Evan Ingram's been a good player for them. And you got Travis Etienne. So, yeah, I mean, I like the Jags offense. We'll see how that is. Like I said, the defensive line for Jacksonville, that could be pretty good this year. So they do have the players. They have the ability to go out there and be a good team. Is Trevor Lawrence going to take that next step? And like I said, get back to that 2022 season and perform even better than that. Because that's what, many people are hoping for. Because, when he came out of college, there was a lot of hype around him. And, I mean, he hasn't lived up to that hype just yet. He's got to do more. But now he's got the contract. And, we'll see, if he's healthier. But if he stays healthy. But, if this season goes sideways, there's going to be changes. And, you're probably going to see Doug Peterson gone. Trent Baalke's going to be gone, if that's the case. So, I'm curious to see how they bounce back. There's just a lot of stuff, going into the season that you want to just get to it already so you can see how these teams are. The Jaguars are one of those teams. How are they going to respond after that, free fall that they went into last year? So, but I think he's motivated. He wants to bring a championship to Jacksonville. It's going to be very tough because you got the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Bengals. All these other teams. You're going to have to try to go out there and beat these teams. Someone's got to knock off the Chiefs at some point. I mean, they have gotten knocked off before, but, the team, at least the AFC team that's knocked them off, as a... Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because the Patriots did it as well, but, the Patriots are now not really a factor in the conversation, but the one that's still active, Joe Burrow, that's really it. There's nobody else that has been able to knock off Patrick Mahomes that's still playing. So, the Jags, they've matched up with the Chiefs a few times the last, couple of years, and they've lost all three matchups, in the regular season and in the postseason. So, but they got a long way to go before they get to that. But Trevor Lawrence is in good spirits. Like I said, I think he deserved to get paid, just not that money that kind of money, but that's the position he plays. So we'll see how it all shapes out. But let me know what you guys think about what Trevor Lawrence had to say. How do you see the Jaguars performing in 2024? Do they bounce back? Let me know in the comments. So that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back on Monday. And actually, it'll be my last week before I go on a little vacation. Yeah, we will get into more of that. Well, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. So next Friday will be my last day before I go on vacation. So, yeah, but that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to go check out all of our other shows as well. And, yeah, so with that, that is all the time that we have. We'll be back again on Monday, same time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn.